In my life, I've worked with many great product managers, and if I wanted to break down what all of these people knew that usually juniors don't know, this is the video about it. But if you only want to take away one thing, you can skip to point number 7 and see it right away. My name is Till Carlos and I'm a technical product manager, and I lead software teams here inside my own company, and we document everything in order for you to get better at product management and leading technical teams. And today we're going to talk about the things that all PMs need to know in order to work effectively with software teams. The first thing I want to talk about is system constraints. Usually, great product managers know what a system can and cannot do. And I want to give an example. We have, for example, this minimal database design. And this is actually a thing that happened right this morning when my client asked me, hey, can I just add multiple users into my own store here? So I made this database model for you to understand this. This is a usual database modeling software. This is just Excalidraw, and you can model a database like this. It's pretty simple, and it only says this one belongs to that one. So a store belongs to a user. And the way that works is that this is a table in the database, and there is a column that says this store has user Till. So he was asking me, hey, can I just add my employee to my store? Can I put my user on it, and then they can manage the store for me? And I told him, no, it's not possible. The database does not allow that. And so if this is really a feature that we want to build, we need to change the system. We need to change the database. In this case, we would need to add another table in between to make room for that. So for example, a membership table, then we can say, this is connected. We connect the store with the user Till and the store with the user Tom. This is an employee and this is an owner. And so we have solved that. It's just important that currently the system does not do that. So we actually need the solution, and this makes it more complicated. And maybe we don't even need this. Maybe it's fine if they can just share logins for a couple of weeks. So this is something that the product manager needs to know in order to communicate with the clients. There's another video that I have here online about the database design tips for faster and better MVPs, which you can check out here. The next thing is that in any kind of team, especially with software teams, the bottom performers matter the most, because they are the ones that introduce more bugs to a certain system, that waste money of other people, and generally just ship things slower. I wanted to make a case here about the actual efficiency. So let's say you have one senior developer. He develops for 8 hours, and so basically the total effective work is 8 hours. Compare this with a team of a senior and a junior. So the junior, let's say the bottom performer, which is not equivalent. You can have a junior developer who is a high performer. But for the sake of this example, we have a bottom performer here and a top performer. So now the top performer, let's say they do 2 hours of code reviews or 2 hours of questions pinging back and forth. And now suddenly the actual performance is 6 hours for the senior devs and only 1 hour for the bottom performer. And you have a total of 7 hours. So you have less performance if you introduce another junior developer to the team. That said, sometimes and quite often it is very important to add juniors, because later on the juniors become seniors. So you kind of need to feed your pipeline and make sure that at one point you have a team that is very well educated. So it's not all black and white, but for critical things, I would err on the side of only adding seniors to something. Also important is that the team structure gets set early, because we're going to talk about this later. It can happen that you think it's a great idea that you want to add juniors later on in the process, especially going to a deadline, and then usually those things go slower if you do that. But we're going to talk about this in the next slide. There is the Brooks Law. This is what I mean. Brooks Law is you can look this up on Wikipedia. There is a famous book, The Mythical Man Month. There's a good article about this here, which you can check out as well. This is all linked up on my blog, by the way, tillcarlos.com, where you can see all the content we're talking about here on this YouTube channel. The basic idea is that if you add people to a software project that is already late, it's going to be later. This is something that's to keep in mind, and it's very hard to understand before you have seen it, but it is definitely true. The next thing we want to talk about is alignment. Alignment is super important, and it happens a lot that people work on different things and then they diverge and they never synchronize enough. So alignment is something when the users want certain things, but the developers work on something different because the project or product manager did not bring them together well enough. It's important for the product manager to let the developers know the why behind something. So the product manager usually makes decisions for the users, in behalf of the users, decisions about a product. And if they understand the why correctly, it's not just important that they then write the specification for that, but that also transport the why to the developers, because they need to know this stuff as well. Communicating early is super important, and there's this guy on Instagram I found who has a good opinion on this. He's basically giving us a template for one-on-ones. You can watch the video yourself. You can also watch the next slide. Basically, this is how he does the alignment. He solves the alignment problems by doing a lot of one-on-ones. One-on-ones usually introduce things that they accomplished just to get a status update, then problems that arise during the last interval of collaboration. And then they tell the priorities in order of priority and then ask them for correction. And this is the alignment thing. Is it correct that we're working on this thing? Is this really the most important thing right now? And then the PM can correct. Another thing I want to give to new PMs, and usually senior PMs know that, or at least they have a very good senior tech lead that is in constant communication with them. They know a bit how to read code, or again, they have someone to rely on. But if they don't have this person who is always there and checking everything, making sure that on the technical side everything is clear, then the product manager can't even read a bit code. I know this is controversial, but I believe in that because it's such a quick win. It is very easy to just check a bit of what's going on the coding side, and you don't need to know code. You don't need to invest much time. You just start to soak up the patterns. For example, you go into the merge request checklist, and I can show you how this looks like in our Git repository, and actually do in these other videos. You just look into the merge request. What did this person do? And then you read a bit what kind of code they wrote, and you can read the comments, you can read the description of the merge request, you can see how much time they need, how many commits they pushed. All this stuff is easy to grasp, and it doesn't take much time. And I would say every PM should at least kind of know what this is about. One of the last points is the expectation of failure. It's important that we embrace that things break, because we can never build a perfect system and things always break. It's just a question of how will they break, and if they break, what will happen, and how many failbacks do we have? How much security did we put into the system to not crash completely? Do we have backups? Do we have instrumentation? Do we have error logging and all these things? Do we have a responsible person who can fix things? Those things are super important. And now the last point, the most important point, which I teased before in the introduction. It's the one thing that product managers just need to know. If they don't know this, nothing will work. It is knowing the actual business domain. And that means they know exactly what they're building. They're knowing what the user needs, and they know roughly the critical processes behind it. Let's say you have some kind of PDF scan system. You need to know in general how PDF scanning works and what are the technical intricacies and what actually makes it hard. This is the thing where you cannot go around. You need to know the business domain. I think it's obvious, but I've seen a lot of product managers, they did not embrace this enough. They thought it's fine if they just move some tickets around and ask the clients. No, they need to have a clear picture of what the system should be. If you want to learn inside our teams, you want to come into our team and learn hands-on how we develop software, send me an email, or there's also a video where I pitch this thing. You can check it out here, and I'm very curious of what you come up with, and also what are the software ideas that you have that you want to build. Send me an email, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.